Hi there, Shumo TV here today with a new player guide, part 2, on which civilizations you might find the best slash easiest slash most welcoming to new players for the Antiquity Age. I originally put together this video and went through each unique civilization, their traditions, and all their benefits. It ended up being a 2-hour long video, and frankly, couldn't really get much out of it in order to be able to explain how to use each civilization as well. So I've decided to break this into 2 parts. The first part is the video you're on today, which is looking at the overall quick overview of the civs and where I'd put them on their power ranking for new players, and why I think they're beneficial to try out as new players, or maybe to avoid until you have a little bit more experience in the game. Part 2 is going to be a breakdown of each civ for new players, where you kind of see the strength, the benefits, the traditions. Because one of the things I would say this game struggles with is explaining exactly what the main benefits of a new civ are. So for example, if I go to the game here, I was actually just recording something for Silla, and basic benefit looks like it just gets +1 culture for resources. It has some unique attributes, the lecture hall and things like that. But generally speaking, you kind of look at this civ and go, meh. But once you break into the traditions that Silla gets, that's really powerful. And traditions you get to keep through the ages. So your antiquity age civilization that you choose actually becomes pretty important, because those 3 or 4 traditions that you get in antiquity, you can then use in future ages. And I'll explain a little bit about that in the individual videos for each one. But basically, the choice that you make in antiquity is the foundation for your gameplay, and probably one of the more important decisions you can make. I'm going to quickly touch high level on each of the civs, do a high level overview, and as I release the new civs, as I said, I'll update the descriptions below. So perhaps if you want to delve deeper in one of the civilizations, check the description below, see if I have a video released for it, and we'll go from there. First up is Persia. Persia is designed to do one thing, and one thing really, really well, both in its base build and its traditions. It really looks at building infantry units and then sending those infantry units out in the world to conquer other civilizations. It's an economic militaristic civ, and I would say it's probably one of the better ones that are out there as far as the military conquest goes. The Immortals are a really strong unit. The commander starts with the initiative, which is one of the best promotions in the game, probably the most important one. And the Paradisia is a decent improvement that you can go through and do well on. The traditions itself also really build on this and allow you to build a stronger civilization. One of the downsides I would say for new players is maybe going to war as a new player is not the first thing that you want to be doing, but they're pretty easy and pretty forgiving to play, so I'd put them solidly in the B tier. Next up, we have Axum, the natural or kingdom of natural wealth, their cultural and economic civilization. They get +3 gold on resources and settlements adjacent to a coast. So Axum and Tonga are probably the 2 preeminent water-based civilizations. I would say if you're playing on the archipelago map, move these folks up 2 units or 2 on the tier list probably. But on the base map, you may get your initial couple settlements on the coast, but I find generally you have to build further inland. And in antiquity, with ocean tiles, with the exception of Tonga's unique scout, nobody can move in ocean tiles. I find, generally speaking, having boats in antiquity, unless you're playing on archipelago map type, you're just not going to see a lot of use for them. There can be some niche circumstances where having the Axumite, the Dow, ship coming down the coast can be really beneficial, but I find it's pretty rare. Again, unless you're playing on archipelago, different story. The unique trade ship can be pillaged, really nice. In my 1,500 hours of playing Civ, I've never seen a trade route get pillaged. I just don't see it happening, but it's nice. And you get +2 gold from the trade route. Kind of nice, but kind of meh. The Howlet is a unique unit. It gets you gold and some culture if you can build it adjacent to wonders and whatnot. Overall, a decent, unique improvement, but it gets some enhancements through the traditions. It's not bad. Where most of Axum's benefits actually come is from their traditions, and they have some strong ones that continue on through each era. But generally speaking, again, looking at this through the lens of new players, I don't think you're going to be building a lot on the coast. I think if you do, you're possibly going to struggle with the power balance of the game. So for new players, I would definitely put Axum towards the C tier. Next up, we have Assyria. Assyria is probably one of the best civs in the game. If this was a full power list, I'd probably put them up in the S tier, but they do have some unique quirks. So you gain a technology whenever you capture the settlement for the first time. Sounds really cool. So if you can go out and conquer, it's great. But this codices are not awarded from technologies is actually a pretty significant downside. Normally, if you just go through the civics tree and the science tree, the masteries in civics and in science, particularly in science, will give you codices, which helps you achieve the legacy path. Assyria doesn't get those. Assyria, you can only get your codices through the unique Assyria tree or through conquering civilizations, and the unique Assyria tree won't give you enough to complete the legacy path. So basically, as Assyria, you have to go out and conquer other civilizations in order to be successful. I think pretty much every other civ can, just by playing the game, complete their legacy paths however they want. Assyria has to choose war. The Magaru is probably my favorite military unit in the entire game. It really gets you, it's hard to explain, and when I release the full Assyria video, I'll show the how the movement in and out of a commander works. But this ability to move and attack, so it can move after it attacks, is huge. So basically it allows you to attack with that unit and then move it into the commander, which means that it can kind of heal or not be in line for getting shot at by ranged units. And then these things are already extremely powerful, but when you get into the traditions tree for Assyria, there's several buffs to the Magaru and how it works. It just becomes a disgusting military unit. The Tertantu, which is the unique commander, infantry and cavalry units within the command radius have +5 combat strength against fortified districts. This just means you don't have to build siege weapons. It's pretty brilliant. There's some other unique interactions in the traditions tree with how the Magaru deal with the Tertanu. Spoilers, they become even nastier. The Akalu is also one of the better unique districts in the game. It's created by constructing the buildings below. If you do that and build them together, the +2 production for each great work. So you conquer cities, you put great works in those slots, you get +2 production, allows you to build bigger militaries, more stuff. It's a pretty good loop. Having a unique production building is really nice. +3 production as base. If you can put it on flat terrain, you get +2. That's nice. I wouldn't worry too much if you can't. +1 production agency for wonders, so if you can build an extra wonder is also good. And then the Royal Library, the +3 science, and it has 2 codex slots, +1 science adjacency for rivers and wonders. So again, Assyria tends to have a spawn bias towards rivers, so if you can build these on rivers, you can potentially get 6, 7, 8, science from one building. It's pretty awesome. So even without the Magaru, even if you don't go to war, Assyria is an amazing civilization. If you do go to war, it's pretty top tier. The only reason I wouldn't rank it necessarily higher, though, is because of that the codices challenge. When you're a new player learning the game, figuring out what gets your codices, what doesn't, could be confusing. So for that reason, I'm going to rank them a little lower. If you really like military conquest and you want to go out for a military game and you don't care about your science legacy path, then by all means, go ahead and move them up. And like I said, if I was building a straight power tier, I'd probably have them up there because they're one of the more powerful civs in the game. But I think as a new player, figuring them out would be a challenge. Next up, we have Carthage. Carthage is a militaristic economic civilization, and they do kind of have one thing that's unique going for them that I really do think is a benefit for new players is that you can only have one city. One of the challenges, even as an experienced player, sometimes you're wondering, should I keep this settlement as a town? Should I upgrade it to a city? Where should I upgrade my cities? With Carthage, you don't have to worry about that. You can only have one city. You cannot convert a town to a city. The trade-off that you get is every time you build a merchant or a settler, you get 2 of each. So in this case, they call settlers colonists. Basically, you go out and in the starting of the game, you typically start building settlers or colonists. You get 2, which is really nice. It allows you to expand, take territory pretty quickly. The loop for Carthage is pretty easy. You find resources that are out on the map, and then you build colonists to go out and settle them, basically, and get control of the map. It's probably the fastest civ to kind of gain map control. For that, they're really strong. The colonist gets +1 embark movement, so it's really, if you are on the coast, The embark movement is how fast it moves when it's on the water. So you can kind of get up rivers or get up the coastline really quickly. And if you can settle it next to a resource, so that means, if the square next to your town hall is a resource, you get +1 population, which just allows you to expand a lot faster. So when I'm playing as Carthage, typically I try to settle next to a resource because that's a pretty big benefit. The Punic port, I believe this is the only unique quarter that can be built by towns. Everything else has to be a city to build this type of unique quarter. It gets you +2 resource capacity in the settlement if you build the Kothon and the dockyard together. The Kothon gets you +2 production and +1 production agency for coast, navigable rivers, and wonders. Since you have to build this on the coast, you must be placed on the coast. Chances are you're going to have that adjacency. So you're looking at anywhere from a 3 to 5, 6 production building. Really, really nice. The dockyard is +2 gold, +1 food adjacency for resources, districts, and wonders. So again, you can the more you build up around it, the stronger the dockyard gets. Again, also must be placed on a coast. So the +2 resource capacity is the main thing, and the biggest thing, again, you can build this in towns. So when you can build these in towns, that means that these are ageless buildings, which means that they stay with you the whole game. So if you start as Carthage and you say build every town with a Punic port, that means when you go to the exploration age, all of those towns have +2 resource capacity, which can actually make a pretty big difference in the game. It's unique cavalry unit. Honestly, I haven't used it that much when I've been playing Carthage. I usually play a little bit more SimCity style, don't go to war a lot. You can't build it, so it's not in the build queue. And with my ADHD, it's probably why I don't build a lot, because they don't show up as options. But if you do go to war with Carthage, it does have a pretty big stick, +1 combat strength for each unique resource assigned to your capital. Because of this port and because of some other things that happen in the tradition, you might get 8 or 9 different resources slotted in. If you can get those to all be different, you can have a pretty powerful cavalry unit. It's not a bad unit, as I said. Between having to purchase it only and it not showing up in the resource queue, I tend not to build it very much. Because it's so easy with the towns and not having to worry about what town becomes a city and only have to deal with one city, I put in the A tier for new players. As a bonus, I would, if I was building a power list, I'd also probably put it in the A tier. It's just a decent, solid civ. All right, next up we have Egypt. They're a cultural, economic, civic. Their main benefit is +2 production on improvements in districts and navigable and minor rivers. Huge benefit. It used to only be this applied to only navigable rivers. So if you're listening to this saying, oh my God, I thought Egypt was terrible, I read a bunch of things saying they're one of the worst civs. That was true before 1.3. As of 1.3, they're pretty great. Their unique unit, the Medjay, does not require any maintenance, which is awesome. The Jadi can help you speed up wonders. They're also pretty amazing. Probably the only great people in the game I ever built. And the unique district is all about building wonders. So it gets you 100 gold if you build a wonder quickly. Having a culture building as one of your unique buildings is also great. And +3 gold doesn't hurt as well. Lots of good adjacencies as well, make it really easy to build around. So overall, I would say this, particularly as of 1.3, won't be surprised if they get nerfed again, because they're probably too strong right now. One thing that is not shown on here is the traditions for Egypt are all about building wonders. So if you want to build wonders and build them quickly, Egypt has a ton of buffs to be able to build wonders. And if you do build wonders, you get more benefits. So Egypt is the wonder building civilization. As a new player, as long as you start with the rivers, they don't have to be navigable rivers. They could be regular rivers. If you're starting with rivers in your territory, these two go straight up to S tier. Next up, we have Greece. As a spoiler, Greece is probably one of my favorite civs to play overall. Next up is Greece. Greece is cultural and diplomatic. If Egypt is the wonder building civilization, then Greece is the city-state civ. It's all about finding city-states, suzeraning them, and making them your friends. Their unique infantry unit is +2 combat strength if it's adjacent to another hoplite. Nice little perk. The Logios, as I said, in the Egypt, I don't build a lot of great people usually. I don't find the Logios that great. They're okay. The Acropolis is a unique quarter. Gets you the +2 for each city-state you're suzerain of. So again, go find city-states and make them your friends. +3 happiness building. That's okay. Happiness is good, but not great. Unique culture building, +3 cultures, fine. +2 influence if placed in rough terrain. It's usually pretty easy to put it on rough terrain as Greece because you typically have lots of that around. +2 influence can be really nice, so you can get +5 influence in your starting city pretty easily, which helps you just find city states. Again, one of the benefits of Greece, hidden in the traditions tree, it allows you to suzerain city-states faster than anyone else. And if you're playing with city-states, you're playing with fun, in my opinion. The other reason I don't rate them up in the S tier is because, as I said a couple times, I find playing with city-states maybe a little bit challenging for new players. So I would put them like towards the B tier, maybe high A, or sorry, low A. If there's like a A-, B+, I would put them in there. For a new player, I definitely put them solidly in A, possibly as S as far as overall power goes. But you have to figure out how city-states work for it. Next up, we have Han. Han is one of 3 Chinese civilizations that exist. You can play through the ages. Again, a little bit of myth with Civ 7 is that you can't play as the same civilization all the way through. That is incorrect. You can choose to be China through all of the ages, starting with Han and then Ming and then King, I think. The Han are diplomatic and scientific. Their capital gain an additional population with their first growth event. So this just allows you every time you build a city, just have an extra square that you can build on. That's really helps you build quite quickly. Their Chukunu unit is probably one of the best range units in the game as far as defensive go. I think Mississippi's are a little stronger as far as offense goes, but hugely defensive unit. And there's some benefits in the traditions tree that make them even stronger. The Shidafu, again, as I mentioned, I don't tend to build a lot of great people. These ones are okay, but there's nothing in here that makes me rush to get them. The main reason you play Han is the Great Wall. In the video I cut for the expanded civilization, I kind of show you the challenges with building a wall. Again, I think as a new player, this whole they have to be connected, can't branch. There's all sorts of rules on how you build them. But they're a lot of fun to build. As I said in the full review, they're kind of a mini game. Within that, how many can you build? I would say they are a good, solid civ to play. However, because of the complications of figuring out how to place wall, what is it, a warehouse improvement, blah, 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 I'm rating them a little lower. I'll put them there in the C tier. But if you're willing to, just want to play a mini game and want to build a really cool, great wall, then I put them up with the S tier. They're a lot of fun to just play around just with building walls. But this is Civilization 7, not building wall game. Next up, we have the Khmer. Districts on rivers do not move the natural yield of the talents. That means you can build a harbor or a lighthouse or something over the top of a river, which is kind of nice. Nothing to write home about. So, a decent perk if you have rivers. Again, with Khmer, you probably want to re-roll if you don't have rivers nearby. The unique cavalry is kind of fun. It allows you to just smash into things. It's really strong. It moves slow. You don't have to worry about flood damage. That's kind of but if you've ever lost an army or military unit because of a flood, you might come to appreciate it. Vasia, in my opinion, is a negative to the Civ. You pay a little bit more for the regular merchants, and all it gets you is the ability to be immune to flood damage. I've never lost a merchant to flood damage. Ignores movement penalties from wet terrain. Your merchant gets there a little faster, but honestly, I don't know that it's worth the extra price that you pay. The unique unit, the beret, is kind of cool. It's because it's ageless. You can build it in a civilization, in a city once, and it lasts throughout all the ages. That city will never be affected by floods again. Really, really nice. The +3 food is okay. +1 food on all floodplains. If you're in floodplains, is great. My starting spawn, when I did this video, didn't have any floodplains, so situationally really good. But having the ability to not have floods is also pretty great throughout the ages. The main strength of the Khmer is in the traditions, so you have to watch the full video to see all of that. Because they rely pretty heavily on specialists and growth, the other thing is they're one of the few civilizations that do not get a settlement limit increase. In most civilizations, you can get to 7. You only have 6 with Khmer. That really restricts your ability to grow. I put them down at the D tier. If you like playing tall, and if you really want to focus on playing tall, they're probably one of the better playing tall civilizations. You can move them up a couple pegs, but I think for new players, you're going to struggle to play with them. Next up is Maurya. They're militaristic and scientific. You can choose an additional pantheon after unlocking the civic mysticism. This is really awesome. However, the main disadvantage is in order to get the benefits of those pantheons, typically you have to build an altar. So, and definitely, I think there's only one that you don't have to build an altar for. So to get both, you're going to have to build an altar. And an altar is not a cheap building to build. So you're tying up production or gold building it to get those benefits. If you just got the benefits from Pantheon, these folks would probably go up to the S tier because Pantheon benefits are nice, but the cost and delay in building altars can't be ignored. Their unique cavalry unit, I call these the jingle elephants. They jingle as they walk around. +5 combat strength against fortified districts, ignoring the zone of control. So basically that means you can go smash up against walls with these elephants pretty great. The unique settler, +2 happiness on city halls. More is all about being happy, and that's great. I don't think the +2 is worth the additional cost that you have to pay for the unique settler, but I guess it's okay. The Matha unique quarter, you get to +10 happiness in the settlement if you build that. Again, this is ageless, so it is nice to have that benefit through all of the different ages. +3 happiness, and then +1 science for quarters and wonders, +3 happiness on the other building, +1 culture adjacency for mountains and wonders. As you get into the traditions, these folks have a loop of turning happiness into science and culture resources. So they're all about just having a good time. So they're not here for a long time. They're here for a good time. But I consider happiness probably one of the weaker yields in the game. It can be useful, but not as useful as I think the designers of Civ think it is. For that reason, and I'm going to put them in the C tier. Next up, we have Maya. They're a diplomatic scientific state. If you look at power tier reviews, you'll often see those folks at the top, and that's for good reason. The basic palace gets 0.15 science for each vegetated terrain. That sounds like maybe not a big deal, but actually, in the early game, if you plop down your capital in the middle of 3 or 4 vegetated terrain tiles, you're suddenly getting 2 or 3 science. That's like a 20, 30, 40% boost to your science output in the early game. So it just allows you to get your science buildings down faster, so you can really snowball your science. It's pretty great. The Halduce, the ranged attack unit can see through vegetation, so it allows you to attack units if there's a forest in between. Again, it doesn't sound that powerful, but you'll find if you play as Maya and then switch back to a different civ, well, why can't my archer shoot that person? You'd be surprised how often that comes into play. So they're probably one of the better all-around range units in the game. The unique scout can initiate combat, so I believe they're the only scout in the game that can fight back. In the early game, this is really important and really helpful as you're going out and exploring the world and encounter hostile city-states. The Jaguar Trap's a nice meme thing. I've never really used it in a serious way in a game, but it's nice to have if you need to use it. The main benefit from Maya and what makes them so powerful is their unique quarter. So every time you research a technology, you gain production equal to 5% of its cost. In Antiquity, that's not that huge. You might get some additional production here or there, but once you get up to science in the modern age, where you might be building something that takes 2,000 or 3,000 science, so then you're getting 400 or 500 production back, it becomes really powerful. So that's why it's ranked pretty high in a lot of power ratings. It's because of that. The Jala gets you +3 happiness and some culture adjacency, and the Kugna gets you +3 science, +2 if placed on vegetated terrain. So make sure you're looking for a vegetated spot to put this on, and if you can stick it next to one, you get some additional science. So this is a really, really nice science building that you get. They're one of the few that have the unique science building. And this 0.5 gets you some early start benefits. Their tradition has some really, really other great benefits to the science tree, so they're probably one of the best starting civs for science. Because of that and how strong they are, I am going to put them up in the S tier. All right, next up we have Mississippi, an economic expansionist civ. All buildings receive +1 food adjacency for resources, so if you can build buildings next to resources, it helps your food. It's great. Honestly, everything about Mississippi is kind of meh, except for 2 things. They have one tradition in their tradition tree It's amazing that you'll see in the full Mississippi video. And this burning arrow unit. That's it. That's the punchline. This burning arrow unit, it fires onto an opponent and it sets the ground on fire. So if you're trying to shoot somebody and they have a unit stationed in their city center, it sets that tile on fire and they have a choice to let that unit sit there and burn or move it. It means that you're basically displacing their range units. It's just a mess if you go up against it. In some PvP lobbies, it's actually banned because of how strong it is. So if you want to go on a streak of destroying other civilizations, then Mississippi is a great choice. If you also just want a really strong defensive civilization that you don't want to be bothered, build a couple of burning arrows and they can hold things off pretty much indefinitely, because if they try to build siege units next to it, you're just setting them on fire. So if you like fire, you like things burning, you like military conquest, even though ironically enough it's not a military civilization, just because of the strength of this unit, I think it's great. Because they, it forces the AI to kind of leave you alone, whether they like it or not, and you just build. And there are some decent traditions. I think they're great, and I'm going to put them up in the A tier for new players. The burning arrow will save you several mistakes as a new player. Next up, we have Rome. Rome is the quintessential sort of starting civ for civ games, and I'd say they're solidly there in Civ 7 too. +1 culture on districts in the capital and city centers just helps you get going on culture. Culture's an important resource. The legions are pretty strong. You slot traditions. So traditions are those civic policies that you get you keep them over future ages. The legatus can build towns with every 3 levels. So if you go on conquests and level up your legatus, you can drop down a town as you go through it. It's kind of nice. The forum, +1 culture for every tradition. So as you put traditions in, you get more culture. You strengthen your Roman units, which is great. The basilica, +3 gold, is nice. +1 influence if you can build next to a culture building. Also nice. Getting influence bonuses are a little bit hard to come by, so that's kind of nice. And then +3 happiness building is kind of meh, but it's decent. So overall, the traditions for Rome give some also some benefits that I think make it beneficial for starting players. So as would be expected for sort of the quintessential, they're not overpowered, underpowered. I would put them a little bit behind Carthage, but definitely a solid option. Next up, we have 2 expansion pack civs back to back. We have Silla. It is a economic diplomatic civilization, +1 culture and resources. Unfortunately, this is one of the ones that seems really, really basic until you get into the traditions. So you can see that in the full video playthrough of the benefits for new players for Silla. But ultimately, it's about trading with other cultures and building up alliances. Its unique unit is actually pretty decent. You get +1 movement on a range unit, which is nice. So you move 2 typically. And it counts as a cavalry unit, so things that buff cavalry, you get that benefit as well. I would say if you're going to war with Silla, you're probably doing something wrong. So the fact that it's got a decent unique range unit is great. If somebody does get it, ornery and sort of up against your grill, it's great. But ultimately, you do try to want to avoid war. The unique merchant gets you +5 gold to the current relationship level. So that's your overall score, not just what level you're at. So that's if you're at 43, you would get, I should have picked an easier number, 215 gold. And that's really nice for creating a trade unit. The unique district itself, +1 gold for every resource assigned to the city. It's pretty decent. Again, that's ageless, so every era that you're putting in resources in your cities, that's going to benefit you. Lecture hall, +1 resource capacity is really nice if you put in rough terrain, so please do that. The culture is also nice. And again, another one that does give you the ability to have some adjacency to get some influence. So +3 happiness is decent. But ultimately, the Silla loop is to find friends, create friends, send them trade routes, put in resources, get more capacity, through your different unique districts and things like that. So overall, they're pretty strong civ because they can make friends and play nicely with others, in the sandbox. C tier, if you get used to how to do trade work routes and things like that, you might be able to get a little bit more out of them. Last but not least is Tonga. If this is my list on most fun civs to play. They'd probably be at the top. They're frankly just a lot of fun. Really enjoy playing at them. They have this unique scout as the main thing. You know, the +1 influence on the palace is nice if you can build it on the coast. That's nice, but this unique scout can enter ocean tiles. The other thing, it's not explicitly stated here or anywhere, but it is a benefit having played this, is you don't have to research sailing to even put the Tahina on regular tiles, you know, water tiles. So you get a huge jump to exploration. It's hard to, not just exploration age, but exploration in general. You can get to goody huts before the other civs even know what's up if they're goody huts that are on the water. So it just allows you to kind of just expand out quickly. It has some unique events and some unique traditions that make it really great to get to the distant lands. So you know, send these scouts over to the distant lands. They can't go up on the land, but they can go all around the water around distant lands. It allows you to find city-states. It's a pretty basic loop with Tonga. You know, you want to find city-states, sewers in them. Yeah, it's particularly the ones in remote land. The unique quarter plays into that. You get +2 culture for every trade route you have to a city-state. +3 culture building, you know, with some extra food is nice. +3, and then, you know, +1 culture for coast and wonders. I do find, you know, you can get quite a decent amount of culture from this building because as Tonga, you're typically playing on the coast. So I'd say this, you know, you're seeing +3, +2, +3. So a lot of times the adjacencies are hard to get, but for this one I found it pretty easy. All in all, it's a really solid kit. The traditions are really geared towards finding and suzeraning city-states. If it was easier to work with city-states as a new player, I would rate them higher. They're a lot of fun. Although I will say one of the drawbacks is as you explore distant lands, it exposes the map, and it can be kind of hard once you start exploration era to figure out where distant lands begin and where your existing continents or your starting continent is. So it can be a little confusing as well for new players. For that reason, I'm putting them in the B tier, but only because, you know, I think figuring out city-states and figuring out distant lands, you know, as a new player, Tonga is maybe not one of your top picks here, so I put them up in that B tier. But as far as like pure fun goes, you can't go wrong with Tonga. So from that perspective, you know, just reviewing the list, Maya is probably the best in science, and science is probably the most important yield. Egypt just has a ton of production in the current build. They're pretty easy to, you know, build up a large empire. Mississippi is great if you want to experiment with a little bit more military. They're very forgiving. Carthage is nice because you only have to worry about one city. You don't have to worry about building other cities and whether you should build cities. Rome, pretty vanilla. Gets you a lot of culture. Their units are pretty strong. And Greece, if you want to, again, play with city-states a little bit, even if you don't, their abilities are pretty strong. Influence is probably one of the more important resources in the game, and it's hard to come by, so the fact that Greece just gets some is really, really nice. You know, if you're playing diplomatically, you often have better relationships with your neighbors, which means you're less likely to go to war, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd say, you know, anything in the S or A tier, you know, give a try out as a new player, depending on what might be your preference, and give them a try. And, you know, one of the nice things, there's no bad civ in this list. Like even Khmer down in D, if you want to try a tall playthrough and build a bunch of specialists and have fun with that, they're actually a lot of fun to play. They just have some, you know, some downsides that you have to work around. And once you get familiar with the game, those are easy enough to do. But again, as a new player, I think the ones in the S and A tier will serve you better. As always, if I got something wrong, or you know, have difference of opinions, or you try out some of the civs and you think you know, one should be stronger or one should be weaker on this list, let me know, because as new releases come out, I will redo this list. So, and I take that feedback into consideration. If you like this video, give it a like. If you want to see more content from Shimon TV, give it a subscribe. As I said, I already made the other video with the other civs, you know, the longer explanation. So as I get time, I'm going to cut those into separate videos and release them to you folks so you have them. And looking forward to getting your feedback on those as well. Thanks for watching.